Hello everyone! Welcome to the first episode of Tales from the Field. Today we are in the bayou looking at frogs. So frogs and toads, also known as anurans, are probably the most well-known order of amphibians, right? Unless, you've never come across a frog, and then that's a little bit weird. But there are thousands upon thousands of known species of frogs and toads. They can be found all over the world across every continent except Antarctica, of course. And if you live in Antarctica, please let me know, because that is pretty amazing. I want to know who you are. But they can be found on land, in the water, on trees. They are in tons of different ecosystems, and they provide so much to the ecosystems that they are in. And it's called ecosystem services and ecosystem functions. For example, not only are they part of the food web, but they also eat insects like mosquitoes, which can be harmful to humans because they carry diseases. And often they're just pests that we try to take care of with insecticides and things like that. So, if you have frogs, you probably don't have as many mosquitoes, I guess. Right? This is a tangent, guys. While at university, I was lucky enough to work in a lab that studied frogs. And in particular, this lab studied how a particular fungus may interact with frogs. So this fungus is called Batrachochytrium dendrobatitis, or BD for short, and it's in the chytrid family. So the chytrid family is the largest fungus family, and many of the species of chytrid do not cause problems at all, and, they're found all over the world, much like frogs. But this particular species and a few others affect amphibians and cause diseases. So BD in particular can cause chytridiomycosis in frogs, which can lead to death. BD likes to live in water. So it's aquatic, and it thrives in cooler temperatures, anything less than 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit, unless it's frozen. And then, much like me, it doesn't move very much if it's that cold. Amphibians, including frogs, are facing an extinction crisis. Over 1/3 of the world's amphibians, including frogs, are threatened with extinction, and this is in part due to BD. And we didn't even know about this disease 20 years ago. Let's see, I'm trying to navigate my way around this lake. It's rather large, but isn't this nice? Swamps don't usually have a lake this large, unless it's dammed or something. But that's pretty cool. So this fungus has caused massive die-offs all around the world, and even the extinction of species. Since BD is aquatic, it has disproportionately affected aquatic frog species. And not all frogs are affected by the fungus, including the American bullfrog and the cane toad. Another disease-causing fungus you may have heard of is white nose syndrome in bats, and it has wiped out many populations across North America and the rest of the world. Scientists are trying to prevent the same thing from happening to amphibians, and frogs in particular, with this BD. So while working in this university lab, I traveled to swamps across the U.S. to determine the prevalence of BD in particular species. We conducted these surveys. Hello, Komodo dragons. How are you? And we conducted these surveys during the breeding season, which is summer in most cases, unless you're in somewhere like southeastern U.S., which the breeding season is year-round because it's never really cold. So like Louisiana and Florida, those frogs are out all the time. But if you're in, say, the northeastern U.S., they're only ever out in the summer, like June to August. And if you do live in the northeast, you might notice the particular explosion of frog calls during the summer in the evening hours. And it's because they're all out breeding because they don't have very long to do so, because the rest of the year is so cold. So in addition to conducting these surveys during the breeding season, we only caught frogs during the morning and after dark. And that's because that's just when they're out. They're not really out in the middle of summer, in the middle of the day, because it's so hot. And really, it was too hot for us to be working out in 90 degree Fahrenheit weather. across the country. So we picked cooler temperatures because the frogs would be out more and, you know, we would be happier. But many frog species are nocturnal or crepuscular. Hello, crocodile. Snap, snap, snip, snap, snap, snap. So we caught these frogs by hand and swabbed them. We were looking for particular species. And in particular, these were small enough that we could catch by hand and not really with a net, which is a little bit harder, especially for the smaller species. And when we caught them, we swabbed them with a cotton Q-tip, it's a medical grade cotton Q-tip, essentially. So there's no contamination from anywhere else. The stuff that we were getting from the swab is just what we swabbed from the frog. And what we were trying to swab was to see what kind of DNA the frog had on its back. And BD, the fungus that causes the disease that we were looking for, can be found on the back if the frog is infected. After we were done with the surveys, we went back to the lab and extracted the DNA from these swabs and ran it through a PCR machine, which compared the DNA samples with a known strand to determine if BD in particular was present on the individual frogs. So in addition to swabbing these frogs, when we caught them, we recorded the temperature of the frog itself and the temperature of the ground that it was on, in addition to other ambient information, because good science means that you collect a lot of data, including just things that are present, like temperature, weather, water level, water temperature, and that kind of thing, just to be able to compare study sites effectively with numbers. We recorded temperature in particular, and we were very particular about that because, like I said earlier, BD and like many fungi are temperature dependent. So, if it was too hot, we would expect not to see very much BD on the frogs. Also, we recorded the temperature of the frogs to see if the frogs themselves were trying to warm up if they were infected. So to see if they were trying to modify their own temperatures on their own if they were infected versus if they were not infected. It's getting dark. Rainy. This is moody. This is great for swamps. While we were catching these frogs, we wanted to make sure that we weren't transmitting the fungus from study site to study site. So we were sure to make sure all of our gear was clean between sites. Clean or dry at the very least. If things dry out, the fungus tends to die. Bleach also works, but, with clothing, you don't really want to bleach it because, then it looks bad. Because you have to be fashionable in the field, right? But also, we wanted to prevent transmission from frog to frog, which is possible if you're catching them by hand and you're not cleaning your hands in between each frog. So we were catching them with gloves. And after every time we caught an individual frog, we changed our gloves. I think that's about it. That is my experience with frog research and a little bit more. But if you guys are curious about anything else or have any questions, you can definitely ask questions in the comments below. I will have links to external information about the chytrid fungus, about frogs, and about a few other things that I talked about in this video in the description bar down below. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait until the next Tales from the Field, and I will see you then. Bye.